That is right.
Perfect. Please go ahead.
Cool. So I think the question was around what is Rufus trying to solve, right? Like, what are we trying to
Yeah.
build using LLM technology? So the main goal that we are trying to address here is discovery, right? Like one of the most common problems within e-commerce space is getting customers to the right product faster, right? So that they can make decisions
Mhm.
faster. So when LLMs became a very good, I'd say, answering engine with ChatGPT, it became a natural, inclination for us to figure out if there is a way we could build similar to ChatGPT, who is a general purpose agent. Can we build a more shopping
Mhm.
focused agent where customers could go ask their broader questions, brainstorm, give more aspects on what they're looking for, and LLM should be able to search entire catalog and find right recommendations, right? So personalizing recommendations in real time is what we try to solve along with discovery.
Got it. And if we look at it from an engineering perspective, for the average engineer, moving from a simple chatbot to an agent that manages its own tasks is a huge jump. So, according to you, what is the biggest technical wall your team hit when making that transition?
I think the biggest one was I think you mentioned this briefly before we started the conversation. It's around context management, right? Um, Giving a lot of information as part of context is easy, but then you immediately hit a wall
Mhm.
because when you're building a chatbot, you're not building it for just one turn conversations, right? You're not just going one brand new question, answer, and then moving to a new chat. You are going to have a follow up conversation. And then the way
Right.
this entire LLM ecosystem works is your entire previous conversation with the turn goes back into the context. So managing context
Mhm.
and then to give more personalized recommendations, there are multiple tools that needs to be integrated so that LLM could decide which tool to call. So having that aspect baked into it, context management became a challenge. And then with that, latency became the next problem, right? With more tokens, model needs more processing time. With more number of tools, it needs understanding of which tool to call and
Mhm.
then execute those tool calls. By the time all of these tool call responses comes back, collating all of the data again and then sending back the response, right? So this was a two-part challenge. One was context management itself, and then second, giving customers an instant experience, like giving them a faster response, personalized response. So these were like the two very broad, high-level technical challenges that we ran into very early.
Mm. And you mentioned about the recommendations. I mean, Amazon has been it's one of the uh, biggest organizations, of course, and at the same time, their recommendation system is top notch, according to me, before this LLM thing came in. So, how does an LLM change that? Like, is it about the model being smarter, or is it about how you manage the context of what the customer is looking at in real time?
I think it is a combination of both. It'll be foolish to just rely on one completely. So yes, our
Mhm.
existing model recommendations, which are not LM based before this LLM era, were also great. But then now you have an unique opportunity where customer is giving you a lot more nuance on what exactly they're looking for, right? Um, Earlier, your recommendations were based on, let's say, their past purchase history or signals that they have given you
Right.
explicitly on what they like and what they don't. But that might not apply
Mm.
to the current situation, right? You want to, let's say, you just had a chat with your friends and you want to go for a trip to Goa. You would go to Amazon, search for, hey, I'm going to Goa. You'll not be searching a broad term, right? You'll break down your search before you come to Amazon.
Yeah.
And then you will search for, let's say, beach shirts or stuff like that. But now you can come to Amazon and give it a much more broader question. And the ability of LLM models to be able to ask a follow-up question, get more information from you, and then personalize even further, right? Like it's a personalization to a much more nuanced current conversation level. I think that is where this is different.
Got it. And as you mentioned, there should be a combination of both model being smarter and at the same time manage the context part. Is there a kind of a percentage where you have to lean a little more on one side?
It's hard to say because model being smarter and being able to get right details is equally important. Like uh, the question you're
Okay.
asking would be like if you're asking uh, it from the perspective that hey we use 70% this and 30% this, that's never the case, right? Like it is always in cycles.
Got it.
In some cycles we focus more on context management, and in some cycles we focus more on making recommendations better, right? So both fortunately requires a lot of work around prompt engineering itself, right? Like prompt management becomes much more nuanced and complex. So even to manage context,
Mm.
there is some aspects of prompt management, and for recommendations it is primarily prompt, right? Yes, you have bunch of amazing tools, but those tools response would be useless if your prompt is not detailed or specific enough for LLM to understand how to utilize that information. So we always switch back and forth. Some quarters, the majority of focus is on context management, and in some it is
Mm.
primarily on uh, you know tool calling and recommendations.
Got it. All right. A little more about the scaling, the AI. You have been in Amazon from a very long time, more than a decade now, and managing engineers across regions uh, is a task in itself. So whenever you are scaling an AI product to millions of users, what breaks first according to your experience? Is it the latency of the model or the cost of it or data infrastructure? I mean, of course, it could be any of these or combination of these, but according to your experience, what has been the biggest challenge in this case?
I think going into this product development cycle, we knew that cost will be like initially cost will be a challenge, but it'll keep going down, right? So we never looked at cost as the primary pain point. Latency was definitely one of the
Okay.
most important aspects that we focused on at the beginning, and that is still the problem for us. This is purely because with initially there was just a standard model, right? Like it could just answer your question, but now with reasoning models, they have their own thinking cycles. You would want to make sure that they don't go into a longer thinking loops. Your prompts are succinct enough that model is able to get all the information it needs. Pre-tool calling and then post-tool calling, post-processing is also happening seamlessly. Because if you think about it, right, like not just for Amazon, but any big company or any use case where you want to scale your LM solution for large number of audiences, you would have to do a bunch of post processing
Mhm.
as well, right? The answer that we get from LLM is usually purely text. You want to add some visual elements, you want to add some
Right.
product cards, right? So there is a lot of post processing involved. So when I talk about latency, yes, the major part of latency is coming from LLM. But if we could reduce that, that will be the biggest win. But the supporting
Mhm.
cast for this LLM is all the tool calling in the beginning, context management before we start sending the request, and then post response. How do we process the response fast enough so that at least as we see model getting improved, as we improve latency on the LM response, customers are not waiting for the answer for far too long, right? So that was one, and then
Right.
second, I'd say like in general, industry has not seen a lot of streaming use case where latency is so much higher, right? Like, yes, we have streaming use case, but usually streaming, you have platforms which are solely built for bidirectional streaming, like chat uh, applications such as Messenger or WhatsApp. But in Amazon's case, or at least the product that we were trying to build, um, it was the first
Mhm.
ever bidirectional streaming use case that we had to implement within the same performance boundaries of the existing mobile shopping app, right? So that is where the real constraints are. It's not a brand new app, so we'll have to live with the current constraints. We'll have to make sure that our memory footprints um, are not massive and we are not taking too much latency either. So uh, if you ask me, right, like, if I take a step back, it all boils down to customer experience.
Uh-huh.
At Amazon, we like take immense proud, and we are immensely proud that we prioritize giving seamless experience to customers. So we work from customer experience
Right.
first. And uh, what would be an ideal uh, customer experience would look like, and then we try to get there, uh, irrespective of where that bottleneck is. And in this case, particularly, it was primarily latency.
Got it. And you mentioned the cost, like over time cost reduces. I have heard a lot of things about if you do not manage it well, if the cost governance strategy is not set in place right from the beginning, it actually becomes a big problem. Like, how do you guys kind of manage that right from the beginning in the initial stages, which eventually helps you to reduce the cost over time?
I think it came from the current experience of managing such high traffic applications, right? So uh, at least so far at Amazon, the engineering culture has been that every team is responsible for managing their own infrastructure costs, and every year
Mm-hmm.
team has a goal to show improvements on how they are targeting to reduce those infrastructure costs, right? As a culture, it's baked in. So when we started working with LLM tech, that didn't change drastically. So
Yeah.
every team by default took all the learnings that they had managing these massive tier services that serves like billions
Mm-hmm.
of requests per day. So just making those learnings as we put the design together, the technical architecture together helped.
Makes sense. Yeah, because recently I was talking to one of the uh, principal solutions architect at Microsoft, and he mentioned that although there are a lot of frameworks and a lot of I mean, structures that are there in Microsoft, which of course helps to manage that cost. But at the same time, whenever they create a workflow, create a product for an external company for a client, that actually is something that they have to focus on solely right in the beginning because they are working on someone else's project.
Mm.
So that's the reason why I actually thought it'd be interesting to understand how you guys are so confident about it. But that makes sense actually. I mean, with the previous experience that Amazon has, and at the same time setting that parameter right from the beginning will definitely help a lot.
Yeah, I think the important aspect here is to set those constraints very early, right? So
Right.
if I can go back to the response that I gave earlier, right? We were operating from customer experience. If you want to give customers a
Right.
sub 2-second kind of benchmark latency experience, right? Like instant answer experience, you already have constraints in place. You cannot just say that you are going to use infinite resourcing to make it happen. Now you have to look at the other
Mhm.
side. To achieve this ideal customer experience that you are targeting, how can you get your cost under control? And there are like, we can take learnings from existing distributed systems, right? Caching is going to be your best friend. Uh, and I think the other thing is, since you are going to have these inference costs, no matter what, like depends whether you are deploying the model on prem versus you're using it as a digital integration through a third party vendor. uh, in our case,
Mm-hmm.
we host our own models, so we had to make sure that to get maximum output of that model, we had to keep it busy. And like every other service, we have our own traffic cycles, right? So you need to identify when your traffic cycle is low and when your LM servers are much more freer, and use them to use those
Mm-hmm.
moments to pre-compute some of the basic factual answers that customers may ask, or there is a high probability of asking, and cache them. Right, so it's a strategy that is widely popular in distributed systems. uh, bringing those popular strategies into your architecture is going to be crucial, and understanding the boundaries, be it architectural or cost slash performance boundaries, is going to be also crucial to make these decisions easier in the long term. Because if you have these constraints laid out well upfront, everybody's on the same page
Mm-hmm.
that these constraints are the real boundaries that we need to operate within. Then this becomes a part of decision making process for the entire team and organization.
Got it. Yeah. All right. My next question, I would like to digress a little from the technical questions and try to understand the missing learning resources for
Mhm.
my act role. I mean, as I mentioned, you have been in the organization from a very long time. And of course, you might have hired a lot of top talent. Even if you are not involved in the hiring process, you get to work with new people who join your team. According to you, what is the number one knowledge gap you see in senior engineers who are trying to pivot into Gen AI? Uh, what are the missing skill sets according to you?
Yeah, I think if this question is specifically for senior engineers role, I think the biggest gap that I see is their preference towards their current development ecosystem, right? You might have already heard this a lot. There is a new concept called native builders, right, who use AI tools natively. So
Yeah.
trying to understand what tasks you can delegate to an AI agent is a area where there is not a lot of training available. If it comes to technical aspects, you can get a lot of amazing engineering blogs both inside and outside, and there are a lot of
Mm-hmm.
training opportunities now available as well. But how to work with an AI agent is something that I still feel, especially for senior engineers, where their expectations are. They usually expect the AI agent to deliver at the same bar that they have, right? Um, and the reason they keep meeting or keep getting disappointed is because they think that they'll just give the task without lot of details. So one part that I like to also give perspective, like, or give you some more clarity around, is that senior engineers have lot of organizational knowledge, architectural knowledge that they have accumulated over the years.
Mm-hmm.
And when they give a task to an AI agent, by default, they miss the perspective that AI agent might not have that context, right? So uh, just giving it the task, even if that task has decent enough details, it doesn't land the way they anticipate it to land. And the main reason is
Mm-hmm.
not having that entire organizational trade-offs, other architectural constraints that these guys are aware of, that agent doesn't have context to. So my focus has been to help them treat AI agents like interns and give it enough context and show it like what successful output looks like has been more game changing. Uh, but it is again a very slow
Right.
process. I would love if there is a more standardized process around how to prompt, not necessarily prompt engineer, but how to pass right context to the model, right, to get best out of it. Not necessarily from an application standpoint, but from an agent standpoint, right? Like how it can help you get better output and can enable you to be the 2x, 3x, or 10x engineer.
Mm. And okay, yeah, that actually does make sense. Um, so, but you have already answered this question, but still, I just wanna ask this to see if there are other topics that you have in mind. Uh, let's suppose if you are given a task of creating a 4 or 5 hour master class or uh, kind of a documentation. You have to write that documentation in 150 to 200 pages w- for your team. I mean, there is one specific problem that you are trying to understand and solve, and
Mm.
you are given a task to create a technical guide for your team to solve that one specific Gen AI problem. So, what would that problem be? And how would you try to create a solution around that with the help of this learning resource?
Who will consume this learning resource? Will it be AI agents or
Y- y-
my team members?
your team.
Okay. First of all, I don't think anybody would read 150 to 200 pages. With LLMs, I think people try to create summaries or some use like notebook LM kind of tools to
Yeah.
create a podcast, right? So I think
Hmm.
I would probably focus on creating a 10-page-ish roadmap items for the team, and then maybe 100 pages for the agent itself, right? On how to do specific tasks, what to check, what a good response looks like, and how to ask right follow-up questions depending on the context of the problem that it has been given. So I'll probably put all of that in
Hmm.
a 100-page or 150-page document, add that as a knowledge base to the model, and then go from there.
Okay.
But to
And
answer your original
out of
question,
curiosity.
actually the main problem that
Uh,
I would solve is again like how to give right
mhm.
context, right? So if I can give enough prompts to agent to be able to ask those right questions so that it can get that right answer, like right information, I think that itself will be a win. And
And
yeah,
how do
I'll
you
stop
do
there
that,
and
Sandeep?
yeah.
Like what kind? I'm so sorry. Yeah. Uh, so you were saying something?
No, no, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, how do you do that? How do you set that right context? Do you have a framework that you follow? Any pointers or parameters that you have in place which helps you do that? Like what kind of solution, what kind of uh things you would like to mention it to someone who is in your team now, and you want to just explain them to you know have that right context and ask better questions. What kind of advice would you give? What kind of parameters would you set for them, which will help them do that task better?
Yeah, so one of the most common use cases that my team uses LLMs for is to create PRs, right? And one of the areas where LLM fails massively is that when it is working on a code package, it has a lot of other
Mhm.
code packages that it depends on. A lot of functions are not within the current code package that you're working in, right? And there are a lot of gotchas that only few engineers would know, especially the senior ones. So how can you, if you cannot trust and if your AI agent cannot write decent enough PR and you'll have to redo that work, then your team members would start preferring writing the code themselves because it will be faster, right? So the way we address this problem is for every package, similar to how every code package has a read.md file, we created something called agentcontext.md, and we started adding,
Okay.
let's say, we used LLMs to first create high level summaries, gotchas, package structure in a very condensed form, and to that, we started adding human context. There is a like subdivision in the file below which all of the engineers they will add some gotchas that they had to put together to launch a feature because of time constraint, which might break if some things might change, right? So adding those gotchas, adding those critical dependencies, how things that are not directly linked might fail in a like agent context.md file has been immensely helpful. Now, any new
Mm.
engineer who is onboarding, one, it becomes extremely easy for them to ask agents to help them ramp up on the code base. Second, the PRs that these agents
Mhm.
create have been extremely high quality because it now knows what are the edge cases it needs to handle. Um, this has been very effective, but one of the downsides for this is that there is no standardization, right? So my team follows a standard that we have agreed upon on how we want to structure the context and which order. And there might be another teams within Amazon who might not. And if you have to work within their code packages to deliver a feature, then it becomes a
Mhm.
challenge. So those are still problems that we are trying to iron out. And those are more organizational, company level, structural context management challenges. And I'm already seeing a lot of work being done there. So I'm like happy with the changes that are happening. But this is one problem that my team tackled together. And this has reduced our ramp up time and
Mhm.
also improved the quality of PRs.
That's awesome. Uh, all right. I think I don't have any other questions around this. First of all, thank you so much, Sandeep. It was incredibly insightful.